Welcome, everybody. Today we're here to talk about the Ayurvedic art of tongue diagnosis. Your tongue tells a story about your body and about your health. That's what we're here to talk about. My name is John Immel, and I'm the director of Joyful Belly Ayurveda and also of our educational programs. This talk comes from our certification courses, the Mastering Ayurveda Digestion and Nutrition course and the Fundamentals of Natural Healing Ayurveda Health Counselor course. So if you like what you hear today, consider becoming one of our Ayurvedic students.
Breath smell. Breath shows toxins released from the lung. It shows bacteria growth on the tongue. It shows imbalance in any gut flora, right? That's the bacteria. And a foul body smell is usually due to the presence of bacteria somewhere. And so on. So we're going to be paying attention to that. Normal breath should have little to no smell, no. That's normal is no smell to the breath, or very little smell. If there's no smell, it could also be a sign that ojas is depleted, but we need to see other signs of that before we would conclude it. If the breath has a moldy smell, that could be candida in the colon, or kapha kind of constipation, or fungal infections, really fungal infections for a moldy smell. And you know that saying, right? You say mold and oldie, moldy and old. We might say that about an old piece of bread or something. No one says moldy and fresh. You say moldy and old, right? So there's something about mold that's damp, and sitting around, it's stagnant. And that mold, by the way, starts to aggravate, it creates inflammation. It creates a heat condition in the body. So mold starts out as cool and damp, but as it progresses, it creates a little bit of heat. And that foul smell that you get from that moldy smell is itself a heat sign, even though the origin may be cold and damp, right? And funguses love cool, damp environments. So it likes sweetness too, so cool, damp, and sweet. And that's, of course, mold is a sign of kapha out of balance. Oh, there's some herbs that would be great if the breath had a moldy smell. All right, what if the breath smells like sewage? Well, that is a sign that the stools are turning really rancid, that there's a lot of fermentation in the gut. And this is a sign of poor digestion. And it's a more vata sign. So kapha smells a little moldy, vata a little bit more like sewage or fat. It's a little bit more foul. And that poor digestion could be due to dryness, or it could be due to poor blood flow to the bowels, right? So vata tends to have either weak blood or insufficient enzyme production, and that's why they have trouble digesting the food. And then it starts to ferment and turn rancid. And again, like the mold, it leads to heat. So some herbs to deal with a sewage or foul smell in the breath. You want to cleanse. You'll notice that these herbs will all be cleansing herbs and antimicrobials like Vedanga to reduce fermentation. If it's a very fleshy smell, that's pitta. It's pitta with ama. That's what sama pitta means. It's pitta with toxins, or pitta with ama. So we want to take pitta-reducing herbs, and I gave a little bit here. And if you have that fleshy smell, it's a sign there may be inflammation somewhere, or even bleeding somewhere. Lips. If the lips are very dry, and the person has a dryness in the skin, it could be point to dehydration, and the person should maybe have more salt and fluids. And look for fluid loss somewhere. Remember that a person just doesn't get dehydrated from not drinking enough water. They get dehydrated when they lose fluid. And vata people lose a lot of extra water through their kidneys. They pee it out. So they pee too much, and they're always peeing clear urine because their kidneys are always trying to flush out toxins in their blood. and or their kidneys may be a little leaky, and that causes chronic dehydration. But diarrhea or even sweating can also lead to rapid fluid loss and dehydration. If the lips are cracked and peeled, though, we're going to be thinking about a fungal infection, or at least that's my clinical observation. I haven't read that in the textbook, but that's what I've noticed in my clinic, is when you get this sort of scaly, cracked lip like you see in the photo here, that we're dealing with maybe a fungal infection somewhere in the body. I've noticed that people who have that pear-shaped body will often have this kind of scaly or dry cracking in the lips. And it's typically a kapha sign, believe it or not. Most kapha signs are not dry. But this is just what I noticed. One of my clients said, whenever I eat wheat, my lips get chapped. So it's not always a fungus, or maybe the fungus is eating the wheat. All right, what about red? If the lips are very red, that's a flare-up of pitta. And it could. I had a client with severe acid reflux, and they had very bright red lips. And in Chinese medicine, that's a heat sign as well, and even a sign of damp heat, perhaps. There's probably a few signs associated with redness, even in Chinese medicine. And that comes with those, remember I mentioned those gunas and doshas? You can always tell the gunas and doshas in the case that are out of balance in the body. And here are some of the gunas that are out of balance: sharp quality, hot quality, dryness and roughness. Now, what does red have to do with dry, right? What does heat have to do with dryness? Well, heat sort of burns up fluid. And also, as the blood becomes drier, it tends to get darker red. And so the tongue will become darker red and the lips will become darker red. So don't forget that redness is a sign of heat, but also dryness. And usually it's dryness, and probably the most common is dryness and heat. Pink lips are normal, but if the lips are pale, as in this photo, that could be a sign of anemia, or it could be a sign of cold. Sometimes purplish or bluish lips is a sign of cold as well. Juicier, bigger lips are more kapha dosha, and pitta will also have very moist lips, but not as large as kapha lips, and very thin lips is vata. Although this photo, as I'm looking around the cheeks and the skin of this photo, I'm noticing there's a little bit of puffiness to this client's skin. And so I'm going to say that the thin lips in this photo may even be due to a lack of muscle tone, and not just pure vata that's going on here. In fact, there's just a little bit of vata kapha going on in that bottom photo. Sometimes you'll see redness in the corners of the mouth. Just look for these signs, folks. They could be a sign of a diet too low in vitamins, or it could be caused by infection. It could be caused by closing the mouth too much, as in a person who is not wearing their dentures. And so then that could cause irritation in the corners. Notice this pathological tongue in the background of this photo here. You even notice there's a lot of redness on the lips, redness on the tongue. There look some cracks. This tongue looks a little swollen there. So we'll get into some of that as we keep going here. Cold sore is really different. Notice this doesn't have little blisters on it in the corners of the mouth, but this one has little blisters. That's for B simplex virus. And on the bottom photo here, you see a cleft palate. This is sometimes a child will be born and they're with a cleft palate, and you can see that there. Just the mouth has not properly formed during pregnancy. All right, so quick thing about the inside of the mouth. I always just look to see if the throat is irritated and red and inflamed, or if there's if the tonsils are swollen, or if there's a lot of yellowishness in the back of the throat, which means that there's bile components in the blood. It means the liver is leaking some bile, and that's a sign of high pitta when you see that yellowing of the tissue in the back of the mouth. Usually you can't see mouth sores inside the mouth. Yeah, you'd have to ask your client to peel back their lower lip a bit to see if there's any sores there, but you can just ask the client, do you ever get mouth sores? And mouth sores can either be from low immunity, um, blastocystis hominis. I caught blastocystis hominis once from traveling overseas, and blastocystis is a bacteria that secretes hormones that suppress immunity. And so my immunity was suppressed, and then I got these mouth sores. Well, once I got rid of that infection, the mouth sores went away. So people who have other immune disorders may get mouth sores as well. And mouth sores can be a sign of inflammation in the GI. Anytime I used to eat tomatoes as a kid, I used to get them. It can also be a sign of low Agni, or that whenever I say the word Agni, for those who are new to Ayurveda, what I'm referring to is really metabolism, the fire in the body, the strength of the person's metabolism, even the strength of their digestion, that can all go under Agni. So if a person has good, strong Agni, they're going to have a certain brightness to them. They're going to be glowing a little bit. And if they have very low Agni, then they'll have low immunity too. So a few things about teeth. Ask your clients if they use teeth whitening toothpaste, because that can distort the color of the teeth. Note that the smell of a person's breath can come from a cavity, and always check for potential cavities visually by looking at the teeth. You'll see a little speck in one of the valleys on the top of the tooth. Now, obviously, you're not going to pretend you're a dentist when you're doing this, and you're not going to be able to see cavities that are between the crevice of the teeth, and you may not even be able to see them if they're on the surface. But you can see some of them, and I always look. Some examples of different teeth colors. See the gray teeth at the top, yellow at the bottom, gray at the top. That grayness, that dark grayness is, now that's an extreme case. That's probably someone who took antibiotics. But a little bit of grayness in the teeth, common in the elderly. It's a sign of ama in the colon, vata ama in the colon. It could be a sign of the loss of enamel, of tooth enamel, or even a magnesium deficiency. And the same thing with yellowing. It could be a sign of high pitta or also a loss of enamel. And there's those big pearly whites that are characteristic of kapha dosha. And kapha also has a thick, sturdy teeth. And look at this. See how the mouth is very irregular here? That's vata. And pitta people tend to have small teeth. Vata and kapha tend to have larger teeth. Some vata people have small teeth as well, depending on the level of deficiency.
Thank you for your interest in the tongue, for your interest in Ayurveda, and most importantly, for your interest in healing yourself, your families, and your communities. Every time you give to your body gives back, and that's such a great gift. So I hope you truly loved learning about tongue diagnosis, which is so important in Ayurveda. And if you did like learning about this topic, consider joining us as a student.